Good evening, my name is Kacper Paradowski and you're watching Poland Daily News. Today's hot topic in Poland is the overhaul of the judiciary system, which has seen little reform since the communist days 30 years ago. Many pose the question whether Poland is a democracy or rather a judiocracy. Politicians of the ruling camp have no doubt that recent actions of part of the judicial community based on a ruling by the European Court of Justice might lead to legal anarchy. The opposition in turn argues that the new proposed amendment to the legislation regulating the structure of the court system is of repressive nature that undermines the legal order.
Who, according to the Constitution and according to the recent verdict of the European Court of Justice, has the right to nominate new judges? We have to ask this fundamental question. In my opinion, such a right does not belong to a group of Supreme Court judges. It is a right reserved for the Polish president. What is happening right now, in my opinion, is an attempt to change Poland's political system from democracy to judiciocracy. The basic rule in democratic countries is that judges do not comment on political matters. This is the norm, which is observed in democracies and first of all in the Western Europe. Judges do not take part in political actions just because of this, so later, when they deal with matters dealing with political issues, there is no doubt they are impartial. It is necessary for judges to be unbiased in the eyes of ordinary citizens. This is very important.
The proposed amendment is not on the agenda of the coming parliament session. Despite that, the new Speaker of the Senate, who is from the opposition party, announced that he will make sure that he receives the opinion of international experts, have public hearings on the matter, and even encourage Poles to street protests. In defense against the judicial reform, including street protests, stood former President Lech Walesa and former Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Donald Tusk also stated that the so-called policy of taking the streets and international intervention, called for some time ago by the leading opposition politician Grzegorz Schetyna, was correct and effective, yielded necessary results, and might play a positive role in Poland's history.
On Friday, Jan Śpiewak was sentenced by the Warsaw District Court to pay a fine to Bogumiła Górnikowska-Ćwiąkalska, the daughter of the former Minister of Justice. The case concerned an act of defamation allegedly committed by Śpiewak, who had made public her participation in the reprivatization of the tenement house on Jotejki Street. The verdict paradoxically means that the activist who revealed the reprivatization scandal in Warsaw is so far the only one to have been sentenced in connection to it.
Jan Śpiewak has announced that he's going to file a request for clemency to the Chancellery of the President of Poland. He met with President Andrzej Duda yesterday.
If a motion is filed, then the case will be investigated. This is a shocking case, because it was a man who fought for justice.
The Prime Minister of Poland, Mateusz Morawiecki, took the floor in this matter on Saturday.
It is worth mentioning one point in this matter. The lawyer was supposed to be a superintendent of a person at the age of 118. No comments. Themis, a symbol of impartiality, wears a blindfold. Friends and enemies have to be judged the same. A person who fights for independence as hard as Mr. Śpiewak should get respect, a medal and a good word. Finding him guilty is against social sense of justice and a belief that he was doing what he was doing for the common good.
Today, Civic Platform politicians didn't want to comment on the judge's ruling. On the other hand, Law and Justice politicians see a solution for this case by filing a request for clemency.
In my opinion, a request for clemency should be filed.
The district court upheld the judgment of the regional court, which was ruled in mid-January 2019. The private indictment of defamation concerned, among the others, an entry published by Śpiewak in October 2017 on Twitter, in which he wrote that the daughter of Minister Ćwiąkalski took over a tenement house in the Ochota district of Warsaw by the 118-year-old curator in 2010.
The judges wanted to prove that the daughter of Ćwiąkalski can't be untouchable. The paradox is that Mr. Śpiewak was trying to defend the Warsaw inhabitants who could have lost their houses because of a reprivatization. He became a victim.
Jan Śpiewak has announced that he's going to file a request for clemency to the President of Poland later this week. At the same time, he will also submit a request to the Ombudsman and the Minister of Justice to submit a cassation complaint to the Supreme Court.
Today is the 38th anniversary of the deadly attack by the Communist Secret Service on striking coal miners in the Wujek mine. 9 men were killed and 23 were injured. The massacre of the miners in Katowice was the deadliest event during the 1981 martial law in Poland, which saw more than 100 dissidents killed when General Jaruzelski military junta tried to crush the Solidarity movement. Mayors of the 4 capital cities in the Visegrad Group, Warsaw, Budapest, Prague and Bratislava, gathered today at the Central European University in Budapest to strike an alliance obliging the city halls in the 4 capitals to work together with the aim of convincing the EU to bypass national governments and pay out EU funds directly to local governments which are in opposition to their governments.
The meeting symbolically took place in the George Soros-funded Central European University in Budapest, which is in the process of relocating to Vienna, as conservative Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has introduced laws which made it impossible for the American liberal billionaire and political activist university to remain in the country. The new liberal mayor of Budapest argued that local governments can make better use of EU funds than national governments. Independent of the serious problems regarding the right usage of funds in the region, these issues make the old adage of think global, act local especially acute. Therefore, we think that it is in the interest of the EU that in the whole of Europe these direct financial mechanisms should be launched and they can expect results in return. I am convinced that these cities can do miracles in the areas of climate change and innovation. The mayor of Warsaw stated that EU funds should be slushed straight to local governments, as the conservative national governments often withhold money from the metropolitan regions.
We were allocating money to the poorer regions, which needed to catch up, and of course we have to do it. We have to concentrate on those. But we also were allocating money to the cities as they were engines of growth. And we have 12 engines of growth in Poland, as the metropolitan areas are very, very important. Similarly, in the countries like the Czech Republic or Hungary or Slovakia, where sometimes governments have ideas of actually taking money away from the cities for political reasons.
Some EU member states say that disbursement of EU funds for infrastructure and other projects should hinge on respect for democratic standards and the rule of law, accusing the conservative governments in the Visegrad Group of breaking the rules. The liberal mayors want to take advantage of the situation and hope to gain funds at the expense of national governments.
That is all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. The lowest temperature will be 0 around Bydgoszcz, and there some fog is expected. The highest temperature, 7 degrees, we will see around Wrocław. In central, on the south and on the east, sky will be cloudy. On the north, sky will be cloudless. There the temperature will hover around 1 and 3 degrees. Wind will be weak. Now over to tomorrow. Plenty of sunlight is expected around Rzeszów. More sunlight will appear in central and on the east as well. Overcast weather with rainfalls will appear on the west. Wind will be weak and will blow from the south. Let's take a look for the upcoming 3 days. On Wednesday the weather will improve. Temperature will rise to even 12 degrees around Rzeszów. Much more sun we will see on the south. On Thursday, rainfalls will appear on the northeast, in central and on the southwest. In other regions, more sunlight will appear. The temperature will range from 5 to 12 degrees. On Friday, more sunlight will appear on the west. In eastern part of Poland, rainfalls will appear. Temperature will range from 4 to 10 degrees. Pressure will fall.
Poland Daily Business Edition. European Council or Council of Europe is assembling today on Thursday. This is the first assembly under new leadership. Donald Tusk went away and is right now chairing the European People's Party. New Belgian minister is chairing this meeting of the prime ministers of Europe. And the topic is very important because this will be the clean future of Europe, new Green Deal proposed by the new European Commission. To what degree the aim of cutting the carbon emission to zero to 2050 is realistic? To what degree this is an ideology? I will ask this question to Professor Zbigniew Krysiak. So welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
Warsaw School of Economics and Institute of Schumann Thought. Is this a European utopia we are witnessing?
It is. Currently it is. You know, if we, notice that, the Donald Trump didn't arrive, to the, current COP in Spain. It indicates, how they treat the approach which is, promoted in Europe. We need to remember that, the major, originator of the pollution, or generator of the pollution are India, China, and US. And the transition, of course, this is the right direction to get a transition to the not zero emission of the carbon dioxide, of course. But let's look into that what the US did. Currently the energy obtained in US is in 50% obtained from the natural, basically not zero emission, power plants. And only 50% is coming from coal. Of course, US is a second major emitter of carbon dioxide in the world, and they are behind China. But the way they transfer the energy supply and the technology in energy supply is just to be focused on new technologies and not to remove dead resources which are currently important, like coal for Poland, for instance.
There is a very strong correlation between the energy used per person and the rising standard of living, and this is what happened in the 19th century, in the 20th century, the beginning of 21st century in Europe and in the West. Now it's happening in India, China, and other nations that are trying to catch up this developing trend. Yet we are telling them, don't do that. Don't use the cheap energy that's available locally. Please use something that is erratic and may come when the winds blow or sun is shining, or may not, because you will not have your wind.
Yeah, they are just attacking basically weak economies. For instance, Germany is, delivering the emission of the carbon dioxide is Germany is 3 times that what is in Poland, and they try to remove the coal power stations.
We are talking about the emission per capita.
Yes, it's both. The emission per capita is a little, twice bigger than in Poland, but in nominal terms it's 3 times bigger than in Poland, in Germany. But anyway, it's much more bigger. So this pollution basically, is circulating around, not only around the Europe, what Germany is doing, but as well around the world. And they are trying, to close our power stations driven by coal, and they are going in that way to kill our economy. And this is not the way, this is not the strategy to do that. The strategy to do that is just, for instance, to be focused on the hydrogen, for instance, energy resources, and in the long-term future, for instance, nuclear, thermonuclear, resources which are currently on the research studies.
Right, but we don't have off-the-shelf technologies that can deliver power from thermonuclear reaction.
Yeah, so we need to, create a strategy based on the mix. So we need to increase the number, share of the gas, for instance. Of course, extending as well, the different, energy obtained from wind, from the solar, but it needs a time. And you cannot, implement this strategy just, closing the coal power station. So, for instance, a steel industry. So I cannot imagine the steel industry can work, not applying the coal, So what you can do, you can remove them outside of the Europe, right? You can shift them to China or to India, but still they will produce the steel and they will,
emit the CO2.
Emit the CO2, and the CO2 will arrive to Europe again,
sooner or later.
So this is not the solution, of course.
The solution is to run away from troubles and find out the new technologies, or block the existing legislation. That Poland has the power of block this all new deal altogether.
Yeah, so two things. First of all, block. Block partly under the condition that European Union will deliver some funds which will help us to transit to new technologies, and it should be made simultaneously, parallel. So this is a right strategy and the politic which should exercise our government, being on that, summit currently in Brussels.
Being politician, I would demand funds first and decrease in emission later, but we will see.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much for this conversation. Professor Zbigniew Krysiak, Warsaw School of Economics, was our guest tonight, and this CO2 emission is not the topic we will get away from. We will be returning to this discussion sooner or later. But now, that's it for Poland Daily Business.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Loads of sun will appear on the southwestern part of Poland. In central Poland, much more sun is expected as well. On the west, overcast weather will appear. Some rainfalls is expected around Koszalin and Gdańsk. Temperature will range from 6 degrees in Białystok to 11 on the south. Pressure will fall, wind will be weak. Let's take a look at the forecast for our continent. In central Poland, much more sunlight will appear. The highest temperature we will see in Athens and in Rome, 19 degrees. Temperature will fall in Scandinavia. In Oslo we will see -7 degrees. There some fog is expected. Little rainfalls will appear on the Iberian Peninsula. Temperature will range from 9 to 14 degrees in Lisbon. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and welcome to Poland Daily Culture. In this series of programs, I'll be talking to Michał Laszczkowski, the head of Cultural Heritage Foundation in Poland. If not for Michał, many great pieces of architecture would be still in pieces, if not gone forever. Michał, thank you for finding time to be with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
But before we start the interview, let's see some shots of his actions. Michał, with the Cultural Foundation in Poland, you have done an enormous job in Lychakiv Cemetery in Lviv. So in a cemetery which for years or hundreds of years was Polish, and where lots of Poles, poets, writers, but also statesmen and soldiers are buried. But right now it's in the borders of Ukraine, and those tombstones were not renovated before. You have done it with your foundation. Tell us more about this work.
We started Lychakiv Cemetery renovation project in 2013. Before that, there were some restoration works done by one of the Polish associations. But since that time, we are cooperating with Ukrainian side. The whole project consists of two parts. The project is called Common Heritage. Also, not only Polish but also Ukrainian restorers are taking part in that project. We renovated till now more than 100 tombstones. As you said, these were tombstones of the people who had important influence to the Polish culture, Polish public life, Polish science, but also soldiers and also maybe not very well known people, but people whose families put the very important pieces of art at their graves. So plenty sculptures of the famous sculpture like Paris Philippi, Paweł Eutele, Antoni Szymzer, Hartmann Witwer, those people who created very important parts of heritage and left it at the Lychakiv Cemetery. I'm very glad that those tombstones are still existing, because Lychakivsky Cemetery is one of the most important collection of Polish sculptures from 19th century. So we are choosing those sculptures who are very important for the history of Polish art, Polish sculpture. And frankly speaking, I'm still impressed that those tombstones are really existing, because after the war, when Lviv were part of Soviet Union, several Polish cemeteries has been destroyed, fully destroyed. In Lviv, this Lychakivsky cemetery survived, if we can say that cemetery can survive, but it still exists, and Ukrainian side is taking care of this cemetery. Right now, the whole cemetery is a monument, and in that cooperation, we can renovate even those tombstones which cannot be renovated in the 90s. We renovated some tombstones of Polish soldiers fighting against the Ukrainians. It wasn't possible in the 90s. Right now, it is possible, because we understood, we Poles and the Ukrainians understood that our common history is difficult, very complicated, but it is already a history. And right now, thinking about the common future, we have to take care also of the common past, even if we were enemies 100 years ago.
Amazing that it all works. And recently we have commemorated the outbreak of November Uprising, and you with your foundation has renovated one of the tombstones of soldiers from this uprising, as I understand, the last one existing.
The only one, because in 1880, during the 50th anniversary of November Uprising, there was an idea to organize a veteran quartier at the Lychakiv Cemetery, and it's the only place in the world where such quartier has been organized. There is a large monument, several tombstones, and iron crosses. The quartier is called Iron Cross Quartier. Not all the tombstones which were in the early beginning are existing till now. During the Soviet time, part of it has been destroyed. The new burials has been taking place there. We renovated 90% of the quartier. Right now, it looks really impressive.
Just only during this year, you have renovated 11 tombstones in Lychakiv Cemetery in Lviv. And could you tell us particularly about any of them? Is there any of them which you have in your mind, for example, because it's especially beautiful or amazing?
We have renovated plenty monuments of important Poles: Seweryn Goszczyński, Konstanty Ordon, several poetrists, soldiers, and public activists. But my favorite is monument of the daughter of one of the adjutants of Stanisław August Poniatowski, last Polish king. It was a young girl who died when she was 16, I think. And the monument was a grotto with the sculpture of angel carrying the sleeping women. The grotto collapsed in 1996. The sculpture was fully destroyed into pieces. And 20 years later, in 2016, we we decided to renovate it. We found the archival photographs. That's why we could renovate it, reconstruct it. And this sculpture, one of the most, this monument, this tombstone, one of the most beautiful tombstones in the whole Łódź Cemetery, for sure the most beautiful romantic style monument, could be reconstructed, because we cannot say about renovation, we can say about reconstruction. And frankly speaking, it is my favorite one, because the project was really large, really expensive, and we had a chance to take something from the past and reconstruct it and send it to the future. It's our main goal, to find the most beautiful masterpieces and send it to the next generation. This is my favorite one.
Congratulations for this work. It's a great thing to do. And if you are going to be and visit the Lyczaków Cemetery in Lviv, and you will see those new renovated tombstones, think about Michał Laszczkowski and cultural heritage in Poland, which is responsible for this work. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.
For Poland, the 19th century was a century of struggle for independence, and thus a century which for Poles did not end until the 11th of November 1918, when a new, independent Poland emerged from the ashes of the First World War. This is the story of how the 1905 revolution led, as those of 1830 and 1863 had not, to independence, and of the emergence of Józef Pilsudski as the leader of a reborn Poland. For Poland, the 19th century was a century of struggle for independence, and thus a century which for Poles did not end until the 11th of November 1918, when a new, independent Poland emerged from the ashes of the First World War. This is the story of how the 1905 revolution led, as those of 1830 and 1863 had not, to independence, and of the emergence of Józef Pilsudski as the leader of a reborn Poland. Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. And we're continuing our series of looking at all things rebellious and revolutionary. We started with the 1830 revolution in Poland, the uprising. We then went on to the 1863 uprising. And now we're going to start with the 1905 revolution in Russia, which led on to a series of events, ultimately, at the end of the First World War, seeing the re-emergence of Poland as an independent country. And I'm joined in the studio by our resident expert, Dominik Szczęsny-Kostanecki. Dominik, welcome. If we can just start at the more or less at the beginning of the war, and so we have the Austria and Prussia, the sort of central powers on one side, and Russia on the other, and so rather interestingly, in fact, you have Poland, which had been divided between the three partitioning powers. You essentially had Polish folk fighting in three different armies at one, which is rather interesting.
This is. I mean, we have to call it fratricide, because I mean nothing short.
I mean, in a funny sort of way, almost a civil war.
Almost a civil war.
And I think it's quite, when you read about it, it's actually quite interesting, is that the loyalty, albeit certainly on the Prussian side with a great deal of reluctance, but nevertheless, the willingness of Polish citizens of these various territories to actually join the Russian army or the Prussian army or the Austrian army, probably with the Habsburg army with more enthusiasm, because of course I think it's fair to say that Galicia was much more liberally run, and there were much more opportunities for expression of Polishness than there was in Russia. And I think the worst was Germany, Prussia as it then was, where it was actually very anti-Polish in terms of your ability to speak Polish in any public context or to be educated in any Polish way.
This is very good intuition. I mean, the revolution of 1905 gave some liberty to Poles. I mean, Poland after 1905 or 1906 is a different country than before. So to cut the long story short, the Polish language is introduced. in many places. Political parties are allowed to exist officially, because before it was illegal. And those self-helping organizations could flourish. So there is this sentiment, and besides, the National Democrats are winning more and more. People generally are not very courageous. The National Democrats, what they proposed was something that suited, you know, the majority of people who are not willing to fight, to throw bombs, you know, this kind of stuff. I mean, I've never looked at that. I mean, it's this discussion that made me think this way. But in a sense, this program of Narodowa Demokracja suits better, you know, the majority of the people. The revolutionary movement. I mean, you have to be, you really have to be engaged, and it's never like this. I mean, it's just a thin stratum is really engaged. The majority wants to live somehow, you know, to have a stable, peaceful, and dull life. Yes. In a sense, so this may be not pro-Russian, but I wouldn't call it a pro-Russian movement. But this feeling, this idea to settle somehow with the Russians, so accommodation. Accommodation. That it maybe not that way. And besides, the Russians at the beginning of the already in the beginnings of the war, they published a manifesto in which they speak about Poland, of course, avoiding at all costs to promise anything. But still, you know, this call for brotherhood in arms was mentioned. So that was something at the beginning of the war, when Piłsudski entered with his Piłsudski fighting on the side of the Austrians, tactically, only tactically. Who entered the Kingdom of Poland. I mean, he didn't receive any support in 1914. I mean, that was a washout. I mean, God bless that he didn't, you know, drop the whole idea. The support for the Russians at the beginning of the war was greater than that for the Piłsudski. And strangely enough.
And Piłsudski went on to form the what we know in history as the Piłsudski Legions.
Piłsudski's Legions, yeah, Piłsudski Legions. I would say, of course, this opinion would be welcomed by Polish patriots, but Piłsudski's Legions were important not because of what they did militarily, but the legend that they created. And the fact that Piłsudski became a man of providence for the Polish nation, the one who defied the three partitions with just a bunch of people, you know, romantic warriors, fighting poets. Literally, I mean, I'm quoting, you know, the Braveheart movie when they talk about the Scots fighting.
But the legions, I mean, I seem to recall the legions in total only had about 30,000.
Yes, but the point I'm trying to make these legions were composed of young Polish intelligentsia, and I'm talking about warrior poets. You've got poets. I mean, these people in the Second Republic, so in the interwar period, would be, you know, taken artists, lawyers. I mean, intelligentsia or physicians. I mean. Bolesław Wieniawa-Długoszowski, so a friend to Piłsudski, the most famous Polish cavalryman of the Second Polish Republic, was an ophthalmologist. So these weren't people, you know, taken somewhere from, you know, huts and cottages, but this was young intelligentsia. And so first of all, Piłsudski, what he did by creating the legions and making them, expanding them, in terms of number. So he created bases for the future Polish army. That's one thing. And besides, on the eve of the independence, he had a group of talented and patriotic people who would help build up the country.
Welcome to another edition of Poland Daily. I'm here with my friend, Glenn Meyer, and we're in the bar here, so-called bar, because we've been sitting here 30 minutes and we don't have a drink yet. Something must be wrong. It's called Absinthe, but it's okay because they're closing soon. I mean, forever. Unless, well, I think I will let the details of this closing be addressed by the owner in a further episode, because he's not here right now. Yeah. That's Carl, but he will come up. And this is Glenn Meyer. High five. Okay, fist pump. All right. Fist bump, I mean, not fist pump. That would be like this, like when you pass a lorry or something.
And this. Take two.
What was that? That was weird. This is like a Oliver Hardy. It's like a oh no, that's the Three Stooges. Yeah. People don't know who the Three Stooges are anymore. Do you think we'll ever get a beer here? I should have called ahead to Carl and said we'll be coming, and we'll need a beer. I don't even drink.
We're kind of waiting for him to come. What? We're kind of waiting for him to turn up.
He's going to turn up later, and then we're going to have some food. Yeah, but right now, what we're talking about in this fine bar in Gdansk, which is just behind the Academy of Fine Arts.
Yes.
Which was in the previous episode.
You can get into it from this side as well.
You can?
We're on Plac Węglowy, which is the coal square.
It's coal square because Węgiel means coal in Polish, right? If my memory serves. And but this is one of the most popular spots. It's too early, of course. I've been in here when this place was absolutely packed. You could not swing a cat. And I know because I brought a cat along just to swing it, and I was very disappointed because I couldn't.
Live?
Yeah, live cat. I always carry one. I got one in my room right now in the hotel, in case I need it later.
Yeah, right now we're here. It's early on a Thursday.
It's early on a Thursday, and tomorrow is their big anniversary party, or
I'm not sure.
There's a big party tomorrow. There's
tomorrow,
a big party.
okay.
Yeah, we'll have to get more details. But the point is, we're in a place which is one of the most popular places in the whole city.
It's one of the big spots for going out and partying till late.
Yeah, and why is it so popular, this Absinthe?
Well, they did a good job with it, and it's the location's very good.
Mm-hmm. Near the Academy of Fine Arts and near the main market street.
You kind of pass through this when you want to walk from like the train station to Old Town. Mm-hmm. It's right through here, and we're right at the first gate. Mm-hmm. There's Długa Street has the main promenade.
Street? The Long Market?
Yeah, the Long
That's
Street.
What it means? Yeah.
And then Long Market is at the end of it. So there's the Gold Gate and the Green Gate. We're by the Gold Gate.
You think we'll ever get a beer here?
I have mine, but I hit it.
It seems like the bartender, did we scare him?
I think he's probably doesn't want to be on camera.
He doesn't want to be on camera, of course. Yeah. So we're never going to get a beer. But that's okay, because I don't drink anyway. But, just a bottle of vodka, every Tuesday.
I don't know if I showed you or I'm going to show you. I think I showed you Piwna Street, which isn't far.
We looked at the beer street.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that was in my future or in my past.
No, that was in your
my past.
As Einstein tells us, it's all the same. So I've been to Gdansk many, many times, probably, I don't know, 20 times, 25, 30 times probably. And was it in my past? Was it in my future? Or does it all exist in the same?
It's all relative.
Yeah.
And
I don't believe that.
Speaking of scientists, can you name some scientists from Gdansk?
I know one. Mr. Fahrenheit.
Yes, Fahrenheit.
The fellow who invented Fahrenheit measure of temperature, yes, which is used in America and all the English, in the Anglo zone, we can say, but not in Europe. Yeah.
And it's funny, we don't use it here in Gdansk, we don't use it.
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah. And it was superseded by Centigrade a long time ago. Yeah.
So that he was born on a street called Ogarna, which is parallel to Długa. And I highly recommend that street. A lot of times tourists come and they don't make it there.
They don't go there.
Yeah. It's like when we were at Piwna, then the next parallel one or two over is Długa, the main one that everybody goes on.
Right.
The promenade with no cars at all.
Right.
And then one further is Ogarna, which has a nice little pub called 107, and that's close to where the childhood home and birthplace of
Mr. Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Okay, who are some of the others? I saw a statue of Copernicus, but he's not from here, I know that.
He's from Bork and Torun.
Yeah.
He's from Bork and Torun, but Frombork is a small town which isn't far. Just
From
past
here.
Elbląg.
Oh,
just
it's
past
near,
Elbląg,
okay.
yeah.
And Olsztyn as well.
So this was like, you know, the metropolis for him when he was in Frombork.
Right.
So like the big town that you would, when he wanted to go shopping for, you know, computers, whatever.
They
They didn't have computers back then, did they?
No, they did, because I saw ancient thing.
Abacus.
Abacus. That's true. It is kind of computer. But now I saw the ancient Arab computer or something online on the YouTube. I was watching a show, and there was an ancient Arab computer. You're not familiar with that?
Does it use electricity?
I don't know if it's Arab or something. I think they found it in Sumeria. They're not Arabs. They were not Arabs then.
The whole greater Middle East.
I don't know. It's not really a computer, but they say, this
something
must
that
be
computes.
a computer.
A computer means something that computes.
Which is an abacus.
Yeah.
You were
brain.
Right. You were right. Brain is a computer.
Fingers.
Yeah.
That's a computer.
My fingers are lethal weapons when it comes to thinking.
I like how you have your digits half covered.
I have my digits. They're being kept. They're being kept in a warmer state than normal. There's a lady peeking in.
Because
that lady was probably trying to get a drink too, and she couldn't get in. So, I mean, she couldn't get the bartender to come out.
So you came north, and so you thought you better put your gloves on.
Listen, every time I come here, there's a different kind of weather. I mean, the weather here changes constantly.
Yes, that's the bad part.
How do you take it?
Very often, I live in Czech now, because I play a lot in South Poland with my gigs. You know, I play a lot Katowice, Kraków, stuff like that, Silesia. And
Czech is not far away. You can tell
it's
folks
25 minutes south.
It's 25 minutes away.
Yeah, by train.
And a nice little town, isn't it?
And it's just on the way to Malbork, where the big Teutonic castle is.
Yes, Malbork the castle.
It's a
We
stop
did
right
not
on the
make
way.
it today. It was just a bridge too far.
You'll go on one of your other episodes, I'm sure.
We're going to go there and spend
That's one of those things.
Some time.
It's completely required.
Have you been there?
Oh, of course, like 5 times.
Really? I've never been there.
I've never been inside.
I've never been there.
I've never been inside.
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. I've never been to Malbork. It's ridiculous.